Hello, 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 hello. It's good to see you. Say hello.
Welcome to the Huskies Hockey Podcast. Weldie and Andrew here, and a little bit of a lighter news week. I don't think we've got too much to talk about. Some tournament games. We had an NHL debut. We might not have a head coach. So that's something new. I don't even know where to start. With all of a sudden this offseason got turned a corner real quickly, and much to my surprise.
Life comes at you pretty fast, especially when we're living in the portal era of college hockey. And yeah, I didn't expect having this discussion. We've last couple of weeks have had discussions about Brett Larson. But they didn't involve other teams potentially plucking him. So, that's a new development, and one that I was not planning on needing or thinking that we'd have to discuss. But it's topic A.
But here we go. Well, first, let's take a moment to congratulate Tyson Gross as he made his NHL debut for the Calgary Flames. Got on the score sheet as well with a penalty. So took a minor tripping call. But I think the broadcast also pointed out that he was about 60% on his face-off draws. So
sounds about right.
He was, he was doing his thing in the face-off circle. I was really surprised, though, how much it was all over my timeline when it comes to NHL media, the brass, Sportsnet, NHL public relations. Obviously, we saw him, we knew how good of a player he was, but for him making his debut, I thought I was kind of surprised with the reaction of it. I felt it was all over the place.
I can definitely see why Calgary would want to talk a lot about it. It's not like their season has been memorable in any positive way. So this is a nice story, human interest story at the tail end of a kind of a disappointing blah season to make some headlines like this. And Gross clearly was thrilled. Got the photos of him in the Flames garb as a kid. And so, again, dream come true, I'm sure, for him, not just to suit up in the NHL, but to do it for your childhood favorite team, hometown team. Huge. So, and like you said, with this contract situation, we can probably tune in to any number of Flames games down the stretch here and check in on him. We did both miss the bet, the kind of the side bet that we did last week, because I did nail, obviously, the prediction I had. What was that, like a month ago, that he would become the first Larson recruit to make the NHL, Larson St. Cloud recruit. But then when that seemed imminent, we both put on the record which game it would happen. You picked the Blues game, which I think it was Wednesday. I picked the Florida game, which was Friday. It had to wait until Sunday against the Lightning. But stepped on the ice, made that debut, and I mean, he didn't look out of place.
Flames are 1-0. That's right. With him in the lineup.
It did not look like a rookie doing his interviews, everything too. Kind of cool under pressure, and wish him the best. Hopefully this little slice of playing time the NHL is in it for him, that he can continue to develop and become a staple at that level.
Exactly. So congratulations to him, and congratulations Larson on getting his first Huskies recruit to play in the NHL, which I guess can have us go into the discussion. So with Bob Motzko getting the boot, with 1 year left on his contract, that I think was supposed to pay him about $750,000, somewhere in there. That apparently came to a mutual agreement. and obviously that season didn't go as well as Bob wanted it to go, as the Gophers ended with 11-22 in some record. So their worst season in 50 some years, I think it was.
Something like that.
Kind of a funny observation from Go Huskies Woo. He sent out a message. I love reading Bob's excuses. Late game, early game, day off in between. He's a diver and he knows it. And now no one told me that they were leaving. One of his interviews that he was talking to a reporter saying that some of his players, they didn't know that he wasn't going to have him next year until they signed that pro contract, and then they left. So it's like, you kind of gotta take some initiative and know what your players are thinking there, Bob. But at any rate, it turns out that the coaching search that Coyle has ramped up, and a lot of Brett Larson's name being thrown around. And, I just want to say for Gopher fans and Gopher athletic department and everything, if you want to be St. Cloud State so bad, just be a fan. It's really easy. It's not that long of a drive. You don't have to just keep plucking everyone. Just be a fan of us. Just cut out the extra steps. It's a lot easier that way.
St. Cloud could use the boost in attendance, don't you know? So yeah, There's always room on the bandwagon, and
there's always room at the Herb.
Yeah, there's been even more and more room in the last couple of years. But this again, starting with the Motzko news, when that dropped, I think the natural inclination was thinking about potential replacements. And we'll talk about the women's side too, because this happened 2 days in a row, announcing that Frost his contract was up. So I don't know if that was technically a firing or just we are not going to renew your deal.
Parting ways.
And same with Motzko.
You got future endeavored.
Yeah, Motzko, officially parting ways. I don't think that was technically a firing. That might have some, I'm sure that has implications in terms of how much of that of a buyout he gets and all that. But so those moves are made back to back. And with the women's side, we talked about it last week before that news had dropped that Frost was out, that the clear dream candidate for the women's job was Nadine Muzzerall, Ohio State coach, who at that point would have been preparing for this Frozen Four, which we'll get to the results of that a little bit later in the show. Got a lot to talk about in tonight's show, so you got to be patient for the women's Frozen Four recap. I know they're a good one, but for the purposes of this conversation, Muzzerall put a stop to any kind of courting of her pretty quickly midweek by saying she's not going to take the job. In fact, Ohio State re-upped her, and she had her deal. I mentioned this on the show last week. I think through 28 or 29, her deal had already run through. They tacked on a couple more years to that, and so the dream candidate was done. With the men's side, though, the women, we should mention, they hired Greg May, who was their top assistant. We can get to that a little bit later too. So many spinning parts going on. But with the men's side, there was really no dream candidate like Muzzerall on the women's side that they would immediately pivot to. Garrett Raboyne was the name that I kind of immediately gravitated to, being an assistant under Motzko, both at St. Cloud, then followed him to the U. Then obviously leaves to go to Augustana and build that program to pretty good success so far in 3 years. It took me a little bit to remember Patolny, and if this was 5-6 years ago, or even when Motzko took that job in 2018, Patolny would have been a prime candidate. He left Northern Michigan a couple years ago under sketchy circumstances, has been coaching at the AHL to middling success in Hartford the last couple of years. I think the shine has kind of faded from him a little bit, but still, I thought, okay, I forgot about him, but I think he would be part of this conversation as well. One of my followers, Derek Johnson, threw out Larson's name, and I kind of just dismissed it. I mean, yeah, anybody can apply to these jobs, public schools, so everyone who potentially is going to be considered will have to fill out an application. So yeah, maybe he applies, but I didn't see the interest from the Gophers standpoint in Larson, just based on the last 3 years in St. Cloud with Larson. The results aren't, unlike Motzko when he was poached from St. Cloud, the results, the win-loss record has not been trending in the right direction for Larson. And you can say that because of the factors involving SCSU as a school. We've talked about these ad nauseum. All the attendance issues that I've really focused on in the last year, those go hand in hand with the health of the hockey program, all intertwined issues. So you can make excuses for the lack of on-ice success for Larson and Huskies the last couple of years. But, when push comes to shove, at the end of the day, the record has been below 500 cumulatively in the last 3 years. And that doesn't scream out to be something like a quote-unquote blue blood program like the Gophers would necessarily be. That would not be a candidate that's top of mind to them. But as the week progressed, and it looked like Graboyne took his name out of the running, and the reporting from pretty reliable sources like Russo seemed to come to the conclusion that it's Larson and Patulny are the two main candidates. Today, we've seen more follow-up reporting that perhaps throws a wider net beyond those two. But Larson, and between Larson and Patulny, it seems like Larson is the favored candidate of those two. And it's surprising to me. Well, I guess that's what I want to ask you first. Like, when you first heard the Motzko news, was Larson on your mind as a potential flight risk? And when the reporting came out that he was being seriously considered, he was interviewing, maybe even a second interview, and maybe even elevated to a favorite status of getting this job. Like, how has your mindset been evolving over the last couple of days with this?
It definitely was a surprise. It feels like it was understandable with Motzko because where the program was versus where he took it. With Larson, if I want to use the same criteria, where the program was versus where he took it, it's taken steps back. Now, of course, like you said, how much of that is due to the program, how much is, or to the actual on-ice product and the coaching and everything, and how much is, actually related to all of the other issues going around the university in general, and that's maybe what Larson's whole thought process is, and what he can kind of come back to. Said, I've been, more than competitive enough in the NCHC, and effectively I've done it with one hand tied behind my back with all the shortfalls. And maybe he's just using that as, if I had the freedom of the backing of a lot more money and a lot more resources and a better arena, I would be able to really push it a lot further. And just to gauge what other interest is out there. I don't blame Larson, not only for wanting to interview or, potentially leaving to take the bag. That's all workers' rights, and I'm fine with it. But again, like, this wouldn't be a hire, I think, that it would be really exciting for the alumni or the fan base. They'd probably be a little bit confused by it. So I was definitely shocked, thinking that his name would be a potential. And really, I actually, kind of where I am right now with it. If it happens, it happens. We'll see what SCSU kind of goes from here, and who they'll get to head the head the program, but it was definitely, it feels weird that Coyle, said that he would, cast a nationwide search and still only go 70 miles northwest to pick up another coach. Because apparently it worked out so well for him last time. So he's just going to kind of do it again. But now, like with rumors of casting a wider net, it's weird that, Barr from Maine, I've seen his name thrown out there. Obviously, the Gopher fans, I've seen a lot of David Carl, and I started laughing at that. And even Ferschweiler too, I started laughing at that as well. And I'm like, those names, I mean, definitely are not going to happen. Larson, obviously, I can see. Patolny, I can see. Barr, I can see. But when we're looking at Raboyne, the Augustana AD, said, hey, this is our coach, really planting the flag of this is our guy, this is our coach. So I wonder what happened there. If I were to guess, he probably, expressed interest. AD got a hold of it and was able to match, or was able to get a sweeten up enough offer. Augustana is, I think, definitely a team on the rise, and they got a new building there. So you've got building a program. I think it's also good for the conference, for the CCHA, that you're having coaches stay versus like a Hastings situation where, you get up and leave to go from Minnesota State to the Big Ten. But maybe Coyle just wants to get all the other hockey coaches paid. He got Muzzerall paid, and if that's the case with Raboyne, he got Raboyne paid, and maybe Larson's also using that to try to get a couple more years out of SCSU. I don't know, but anywhere kind of we go from it, I think it's just kind of a bizarre set of rules because, or a bizarre set of steps that kind of have followed to lead us here, because I kind of have been on the record saying that I think Motzko, it's a down year, and you're going to have that because it's not the old days of college hockey. And the quicker you can accept that and move on, that your top programs even are going to have down years. You'll look at Minnesota's recruiting class coming up, and they've got a stacked class. So it's not like they were nothing in the cupboard. It wasn't a Scott Owens at CC type situation where it was absolutely the cupboard was incredibly bare there until blanking
Haviland.
Help me out. Yeah, until Haviland got there and started, kind of getting some pieces kind of back together and getting CC at least up to a middling or in the middle of the pack NCHC team. So I don't know. It's kind of a bizarre such. It's just it reminds me of Arrested Development, and the whole joke throughout the series was her. And so to me, it's like I just feel it's like him. You're out after Larson. It feels like a weird choice, and I like Larson as I like him as a coach. Obviously, we've had our difficulties with his actual on ice decisions, but I feel like he is, like I said, he's a player's coach, and I think maybe what Coyle is probably looking for is somebody, with the pendulum kind of swinging the other way. You had the authoritarian for Bob, and a little bit more of the old school mentality, and trying to get a younger coach that understands that. And maybe that's what he's looking for.
Yeah, a lot to chew on there. I want to get.
Sorry, I should have stopped earlier.
No, it's good because there is a lot to consider here. You consider the St. Cloud angle, which is kind of secondary to the Gopher angle, the kind of multiple Gopher angles going on. Obviously, put a pin in Larson. We'll get back to him at least like St. Cloud's. The status of St. Cloud and Larson. Obviously, we'll get to that. But with Motzko at the Gophers, I mean, I can't say that I was shocked that they moved on from him, but I was somewhat surprised. I thought that they got ahead of it at the beginning of the season, saying that this was going to be more of a rebuilding year. Now, I think that even that, their 11-win record, as you mentioned, probably even undershot that mark, where they were trying to soften the blow to a fan base and trying to say, like, expect a middling year. They didn't even achieve a middling year. So, but with that great recruiting class, as you mentioned, I thought that would buy him one more year there. At least he can have this down year and you can make it up next year, because that's kind of how it was sold as, a get me over year. You might not reach the tournament this year, but wait till next year, and the glory days will be back. Now, they didn't, like I said, they even undershot an already lowered bar. And I'm not one to criticize a team or a program from having high standards, but it is, I mean, it's the Gopher hockey program, both of them, women's and men's programs, to have this national title or bust mindset. You know, it becomes tricky because I'm just not sure. Like, you make these two moves, it would make a lot more sense. And I think that they don't look very good right now, because it would have made a lot more sense if they would have made the replacement move right afterwards. And for them to kind of scramble around and, at least with the women's side, miss out on their obvious number one choice. The fact that we don't even have like an obvious number one choice on the men's side, but still sort of the Reboyne, like you lost out to Augustana in a, you know, coach, like who's going to pay the coach more. You lost that battle to a D2 school. This doesn't
private D2 school.
This doesn't scream blue blood to me.
Love it.
This is definitely Schadenfreude, but you'd think that they would have planned this out a little bit more. Like they could have, and maybe they did, but talked to Muzzerall prior to moving on from Frost. And if you had that conversation prior to knowing what you're doing with Frost, because the way it makes the swing and the miss is almost more the headline. And then you hired May. That seems like a, not sloppy seconds. That's a little crude way of putting it, but it makes the hiring of him seem like a second prize. And with this men's coaching search, as you mentioned, you know, saying that it's going to be nationwide, Coyle this whole time is doing duty for the men's basketball tournament committee. So he's doing all these interviews virtually, and a huge decision. Obviously, hockey is not their number one sport there, revenue-wise. It's the other thing. Like, you have these national title or bust expectations for both of your women's teams, but yet you'll continue to extend. PJ will play in the Christmas Eve quick change oil lube job bowl in Detroit every year, and that's just fine. Keep extending him for those very low standards, but we've got these sky high standards for these two programs, and so the fact that it seems like a bad look. And then, so yeah, it's going to be a nationwide search for the men's side, but then the immediate candidates, as you mentioned, you could throw a rock in the radius that they were actually fielding candidates, and now, after the reporting comes out that it's Larson and Patolny as the two candidates, now it's, well, we're talking to a mystery candidate, another college coach, as Russo put it. So I was kind of expecting the move to have been announced today. We were planning to record yesterday on Sunday. We're recording on Monday. It very well might happen tomorrow, which would make this show a little less relevant. But I feel we had to get something out because of the immediacy of the situation. But just from the Gopher standpoint, I don't think it looks good. And whoever they do hire, unless it is a home run, we threw $3 million at Pat Ferschweiler, which I don't expect. If that's not the move, If it is either Larson or Patolny, or someone even of a lesser profile than that, I can't imagine, as you mentioned, that this really stirs the fan base up and excites it all that much. But again, that's not our problem so much as how Minnesota controls or operates their program. What we're mainly focused on is the effect that it has on St. Cloud State. And obviously, if Larson leaves, it's a huge vacancy to fill.
I'm trying to think, what was the reaction when Lucia was hired? I remember the whole, talk when it was like, we can't, like there was quite a bit of buzz about the fact that it's not just going to be Minnesota kids, because Woog was very much all Minnesota kids. He's like, nope, it's a worldwide game. We got to open up the doors. We got to open up. And, speaking of Grant Patolny from Grand Forks. So, I guess maybe when that happened, I was a sophomore in high school, I think. So I probably wasn't as in tune with it as I should be, but I wonder if you've got the.
I remember. Maybe. I just remember that he was seen as an upgrade. CC had turned into a powerhouse before he took that job. They were pretty terrible for a while, 10, 20 years. And in quick order, he took them not just to tournaments, but like to WCHA title games and NCAA tournament title games, basically a regular entrant into the field every year for them. So I think from what I remember, it was exciting, and it would have been, so I think he took the job in 99, I'm going to say. And that was right around the time that Hastings had a couple of kids go to the Gophers. I think Woog was the guy that would have recruited Jeff Tafe, Dan Welch, those guys. But they stuck around with Lucia. But from what I remember, my dad being a Gopher fan, I think that was a welcome move. It felt like Woog had lived beyond his sell-by date.
Yeah.
And he probably could say the same thing about Lucia when they got rid of him in favor of Motzko. This one, again, I'm not a Gopher fan, so I couldn't tell you. It's obviously with social media, you can see a number of fans that were pissed off with Motzko's performance, especially after the Quinnipiac game. But it seems a little bit different especially with this recruiting class that he brought in, or that he's getting, was supposed to come in. We'll see how many of those actually do come in next year. But it felt like it wasn't like he wasn't running out of steam from a recruiting standpoint. 65 years old. I mean, so he's old enough. Certainly willing to buy into the fact that his prime had passed him as a coach. But it seemed a little bit of a difference from the prior two coaching sort of legends that they had moved on from. But it's still, so it's just an interesting situation, because I just don't think that, and maybe it's one of these times of change. Do they still have this mindset that we'll get whoever we want and they'll be honored and thrilled that we even asked them? And if this is a rude awakening, they have candidates that they have in mind that turn them down. If that's something new, I mean, I think that maybe the tradition and all of that from back in the 90s and the 2000s, beyond that, some of that maybe has gone by the wayside, and some of that's for good, some of it maybe not so much. But the kids that you're recruiting these days, I mean, they were born in 2010, 2009. They don't know who Doug Woog was. So the amount of
they don't remember a title for the U of M.
They haven't been born since they've won a title. So I'm not sure if they're still kind of working on a reputation or trying to hire their key people in the hockey program based on this long since past reputation. I don't know. But how about we talk a little bit about Larson and his,
let's bring it back to St. Cloud State here.
Because I will admit, seeing the Gophers' interest, and we've talked about Larson the last couple of weeks, like he's got 2 more years left on his contract here in St. Cloud. I was kind of under the impression, have him play out this next year, and it's really going to be the make or break season for him, because I think that the time to extend him, or at least the deadline to extend him, should be at this time next year. You're not going to play out the contract. You're going to extend him prior to him entering his final year into that contract. Now you can extend a coach at any time. We saw like Chris Mayont getting extended by CC not too long ago. With the last 3 years, I don't think an extension is really warranted for Larson at this point. I do like the recruiting class that he has coming in next year, and which, for the discussion that might be had about is Larson the right fit as head coach for this program, willing to see this upcoming recruiting class through, especially because it's so stacked on quality defense. I will have to admit, though, when I saw his name thrown out there, and then when it sounded like it wasn't just like a token acknowledgement, but he was being considered as a serious candidate, I don't know if I would say I got excited, but I didn't wallow in the idea of not having him as a coach. Maybe it was just because it forced me into a mental exercise of where would St. Cloud pivot? What coach would they turn to? And just then from there, kind of just imagining a future with a different leadership group and mainly a new head coach. Now, it would clearly depend, and I don't want to speculate too much because we don't know what the move is. If he stays at St. Cloud, this is all moot. So I don't want to get into the list of names, which I have kind of compiled informally. But before we even get into that, it's just another opportunity to stop and consider. And this Gopher search and their interest in them. One thing that made me think is, am I sleeping on Larson here? Like, am I an idiot because I don't see like the appeal that the Gophers would have in a guy like Larson? Am I the idiot?
I think you've got every right to be surprised and maybe skeptical of the decision the Gophers would go with this. I actually feel it would be a good fit for Larson to go there. Because I think he, has going to be that coach. He always has his players back. But how is he going to handle if he goes, those types of blue chip prospects and his coaching style that we've had issues with ice time and a lot of fourth line players, the Will Hammer types, those types, you don't get a lot. And if you start recruiting too many of those, you're definitely going to hear it from the alumni and the fan base there. So it's definitely a surprise that he's on the roster, but everything that I'm reading that, Russo will kind of tweet out, that, the search is still going on, but doesn't have to be an alum, which includes Brett Larson. Like, he always has a little tag that includes Brett Larson. So makes me think he definitely is the front runner. And St. Cloud might be looking out here for a new coach. And we might know by the time this goes up, or we might not know until the end of the week here. But it sounds like they're going to want to make a decision here very soon, obviously, with the portal coming up. trying to get all the coaches up to speed. But where would that leave St. Cloud? I'm kind of curious on who is on your coaching search, or if there's somebody that you would like to, take over the helm here at St. Cloud State.
Again, I'm wondering how much we want to get into this, because it would be all irrelevant once the news, either one way or the other.
This whole segment might be all irrelevant by the time.
Well, okay, it's even before this whole Gopher story developed, I think the two names, we've talked about it with like, oh, you've been more like he might go to Duluth when Sandlin leaves. What would be the hypothetical next move there? And I think the two names I think that immediately come to mind would be Reboyne and Oliver. Two former captains. Reboyne, obviously, Augustana. Oliver, assistant for Mike Hastings at Wisconsin. Has been there since Hastings took the job a couple years ago. Now, with Reboyne's turning down the Gophers, and I saw the tweet with the Augustana AD. I haven't seen an announcement of an actual extension. I more just saw more like a take your filthy hands off kind of. It wasn't like he's being re-upped, kind of like how the Ohio State AD announced that Muzzerall was extended. Very well, maybe that's still in the works.
I would imagine, still in the works.
But you'd think that if he's turning down the Gophers, which almost surely would be a bigger payday than what St. Cloud would offer, that might seem like a long shot. Now he is an alum of St. Cloud, which he's obviously not the Gophers. Maybe that is the one job that he would leave Augustana for. To me, with him turning the Gophers down, I doubt it. Oliver would be more of a possibility, but you got to factor in he makes a pretty penny at Wisconsin as an assistant. He wouldn't come cheap, is what I'm saying. He wouldn't come cheap as someone who would be a first-time head coach at the college level. I looked up his salary. He's making like $210 as one of Hastings. He's like his number 2 assistant, Todd Knott, who was his number 1 at Mankato, followed him there. So that's not even the top assistant salary at Wisconsin. Hastings he might still have the highest contract in the country for a head coach. So they've got deep pockets over in Madison. Now, Larson, I looked, and this might be a couple of years old, but $385 was his salary for St. Cloud. That might tick up a little bit more based on like annual cost of living increases, putting that in quotations. So you could certainly, if those numbers are accurate, I mean, you certainly probably would be in the market, or paying Oliver would be possible, but it still might be a steeper price based on their current financial situation. Those two would, I would, no matter what the situation is, whether or not you can afford these guys, whether or not that they're going to say no, I still would call those two guys. Yeah. I have them hang up the phone in the first 30 seconds and say, no, I'm happy where I'm at. And thanks, but no thanks. At least give them the call. That's where I'd be with that. I mean, other than that, I mean, we've heard like Matt Cullen's name being thrown out for the Gopher job. That's like an outside the box move. He's high school assistant coach. And that's not generally a career path, like going from high school assistant to college. But Matt Cullen's not your typical high school assistant coach. And obviously playing, for St. Cloud in his college days, you'd feel like that might have a bit of a leg up than he would if he'd be interested in the Gopher job. The Cullens that are coming to the Gophers, that's another wrinkle in that. Immediately, when I first heard like Cullen's name, I kind of dismissed it, but the more I kind of think about it, the more I kind of like it. He would be a big name. I think that would kind of be an interesting move.
That's definitely outside the box.
It's definitely outside the box. I've got a lot of things that there's some ideas that I'm not going to bring up unless we get to that point. But so other than those kind of preliminary names, big ticket names, you've got a whole junior ranks to consider as well. And I was going through some USHL coaches with this would kind of be like going the Anthony Noreen route that Miami did a couple of years ago. He was a 3-time USHL Coach of the Year, long track record of success there. It took him a year of going winless in conference, but this year they seem to really take a step up. Someone in the mold of like 40-ish years old in the junior ranks, in the USHL ranks, who is proven to be successful there. I think that would be, there are several candidates in that bucket of candidates that those candidates would be the ones that you got to be a little bit more patient with them. I'm not saying that you'd have to literally sit through a winless conference record for a season like Noreen did, but I think you'd be on a similar trajectory. If that were the case, I think you get the most current roster defections. You'd really have a gutted roster. Whereas if you got one of those more A candidates, you could retain the roster that you currently have. The Bernavics, the Halls of the world that we've been talking about are potential flight risks. If Larson leaves, you'd really think those guys are gone. And a lot of those recruits, obviously, that Larson was slated to bring in next year, you got to think all those are gone. If you bring in an Oliver or Raboyne or one of these sexy candidates, better chance of retaining the current roster. You go young, you go unknown, you go the junior route, you're more in a full rebuild, and you're probably looking at, you're going to be competing for last place, at least in the short term, for like a year or two, until you see the coach kind of get his recruits in place. Now, that would be that'd be short-term pain, but I think there would be, I'd be willing to go through with it because I do like the idea of bringing a guy in who needs to establish himself, who doesn't have a name, who's really hungry, and to see how it goes with that. I mean, so there's a lot of different avenues that I go. I mean, clearly I would prefer not to have like scorched earth and send us to Miami level irrelevance for a couple of years. Clearly that's not the ideal situation. But I'm just not sure what this school can afford in terms of if they can afford to bridge a gap between Larson and the next coach without completely gutting what they currently have in terms of talent. So again, if we get to the point where Larson is going to be putting on a maroon and gold tie here pretty soon, I can get into those names. But that's kind of where I was thinking. And I would assume you're kind of thinking the same way, at least with those A candidates. Were there any other in that sort of sexy bucket? That's the name of this podcast. Any more names in that bucket?
Sexy bucket.
That you would kind of be like, hit a home run, hit a St. Cloud version of a home run if he does leave.
Well, for me, obviously, I would love Raboyne. I think Raboyne's just off the table. So I'll just move on from that. But I do think Oliver should be the next one on speed dial. With coaching also under Hastings, which another SCSU alum, obviously was an assistant here. Also, during some incredibly good years, head coach at Fargo for the USHL, went to the title game there or the title series. So, I mean, I think he's got a good enough track record. I think he'd be excited for it. And I think that would be just kind of an easy hire. What I don't really want, is that I just really hope we don't stick with the same staff. In a sense,
absolutely. That's in the never bucket.
That like this. I think if like Ruder Anga, if we go that route, I think that would be big mistake. And I think that would be something that would really shake my foundation with the athletic department and this administration, is if we go kind of that easy, cheap route, because I have not seen a lot there that I'd be excited with. And Rude also was a head coach here at St. Cloud State for the women's team, and did not go well there. So, obviously the landscapes are different, but at the same time, you haven't showed me anything. So I don't know if anything would be there. So I think really Oliver would be my, 1A, 1B. If that does fall through, then I think we'd be, I'd start going into a little bit of a panic mode.
Well, again, we can cross that bridge and get into some more details. I've got names, but it seems pointless to bring them up now because it might not be necessary. We did get some questions. A couple of them are germane to this conversation. Brandon writes in, and he's kind of got his dream staff if Larson leaves. He's got Oliver as his head coach. He wants to keep Custer on board. Veteran coach, he mentions Gibbons / Shayak type, maybe not literally those names, but a veteran coach, preferably someone with D1 head coaching experience as an assistant. And then he throws his name, and I appreciate this because I've been saying a version of this is he throws out the name of Spencer Meyer as an assistant / video coach. I think he's definitely got coaching. If he wants it, I think he would make a very good coach, Spencer Meyer, I think. So, but part of how he starts this email is even if Larson doesn't get the Gophers job, seems like the beginning of the end for his coaching time here. That I did have to think about that and ponder that for a little bit. There is the possibility that coaches are just doing this to try to get a raise at their current job. I'm wondering if he's barking up the wrong tree with St. Cloud. Like this, it's not like we got a lot of money to go around here. And as I mentioned, I don't know if a extension coming off a third straight non-NCAA season and a below 500 year, I'm not sure if an extension right now, talk about like great headlines or the best timing, not a great look. Perhaps that's what he's going for. I would say with the second interview and with all the steam coming out of Russo and the Gopher camp that he is being like a favorite of this job. I don't think that this is just a ruse from Larson. I do think that he is a serious candidate down in Dinkytown. So with this, and he's clearly interested if he's doing multiple interviews at this point, and he's not doing the Garrett Raboyne, wave him away, hand wave him away and have his AD, as you put it, put his flag down. He's clearly allowing this wooing of the Gophers to happen. Does that taint your perception of him as, someone who bleeds Cardinal black, or is this just kind of pulling the veil off that, these guys are all mercenaries. They're doing it for a paycheck. And as I mentioned, I don't really even blame him for that. But does this kind of, where Brandon's kind of thinking, like, if he's being willing to leave now, yes, it is for a quote unquote more, a blue blood program. But does this make you think more, if it's not, even if it's, let's say it's not the Gophers, like, is this the first move that a guy like Larson makes to leave St. Cloud eventually?
All of that I think just makes sense. If you're looking at it objectively, it's more resources, more exposure, more kind of everything. I don't see that being too much of an issue. And I also think that when we're looking at how the circumstances are, like if we compare and contrast, how this hypothetical Larson leaving versus how Motzko left, I mean, it's really a night and day difference when it comes to it. So I'm not, when Motzko left, it was more of a cover of darkness, fly by night, stab in the back type, not even focused on your game against Air Force type situation. And already you're out the door without doing any type of follow-up questions or interviews or anything like that. The next time we see you, you're being offered the job, or you're in your introductory press conference. Here, it's more of if this is an opportunity for you and you want to go for it, go right ahead. Wish you, I mean, obviously not great luck there because you're going down to Minnesota, but at the same time, thank you for your service. Let's turn the page, and then we'll kind of move forward. Much kind of like, I guess, how Dahl, kind of went out, kind of the same way. Whereas he had some really good years, and then things kind of started going sideways, and then, obviously a little bit of a different circumstance with Dahl getting asked to retire versus Larson going somewhere else. But I would look at it as kind of actually very similar situation as when Dahl left. So, or when we got rid of Dahl or whatnot, just with that minor little change in there. But it's all about, getting the right hire for the next one, if it does come to that. But where does this leave then? I'm always kind of curious if he doesn't get it and he was rumored, how does Larson spin this when the questions do come up? Like, so, we heard you were a finalist at another job. Does he just do the PR response of, yeah, I listened and I took my name out of the running? Does he just lie like that? Does he and that's what I'm really curious in how he's going to spin it, that no, I'm completely committed to St. Cloud State. And it's really, are you? That's what's you think we can get Jim Erickson to ask those hard-hitting questions?
And you got to wonder too if that, I'm just thinking about this now, but does that have any effect on his recruiting to St. Cloud, players to St. Cloud? If the story's out there that he's willing to bolt, now you might have, these recruits could follow him to wherever he goes. But does that sort of signal to potential recruits that he isn't exactly committed to the school that he's employed by? Why should I commit to that school if the coach is, willing to be wined and dined by other schools? I'm wondering if that has any effect on the recruiting trail, or if recruits even follow this kind of drama. The one thing, I agree in terms of, you want a bigger payday. I'm a capitalist. You think that you can get more resources and a better facility and all that. Have at it. I mean, it's a free country. One thing that also the Gopher job comes with, and we saw this with Motzko as well, is you got a lot more knives pointed out at you. The amount of media pressure, we talked about this after the Duluth series, the amount of media coverage of St. Cloud is minimal compared to the Twin Cities. It's a different beast. And being a head coach in St. Cloud and then taking a job at a Big Ten school, it would be a different challenge for him. He's always been, he's been the assistant, whether it be at Ohio State or Duluth or the Olympics or the World Juniors, or he's been a head coach at, St. Cloud State, which is, a school that ESPN would have to put the MN in parentheses on their scorebug because people don't know where it is. People know what the University of Minnesota is. They know where it is. They know what the program is. And that would be a challenge for him that I think that he might struggle with. I don't know exactly if he knows all of what he's getting into. Not like this is the New York media market we're talking about here, but it's a different beast. And I think that Motzko ran into a little bit of that. Not sure if Larson is fully prepared for something like that. But, yeah, it's what else do you got? Like, what else is on your mind here? Because again, this is I'm gonna throw it out at you. The news comes out that the Gophers take him. Are you like, okay, good riddance?
No, I'm not good riddance. But I'm like more of all right. I mean, there was nothing we could do at this point. We don't have the pockets where we could match it. But it's more of we got to get this next hire right. Because if we don't get that next hire right, we will be in the Miami Pantheon. We can't, really rest on anything too long before all of a sudden you're ninth or 10th soon in the NCHC. So it's something that you got to have to come by really quickly, and it's got to be right to calm the waters and make sure everyone's on board, that the recruits that want to be here, and they do like the challenge, they do like the facilities, they do like everything along those lines that kind of come with it. I do like a lot of aspects of Larson as a coach. Some of it, we've also had qualms with, but I can see that as any coach. So it's a situation where I'm definitely not a good riddance type situation, but somebody new. I wouldn't be heartbroken. It wouldn't be a big stab in the back, so to speak, as long as we get that next hire correct.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Good riddance. I was throwing it out there for hot take purposes. I wasn't really thinking that exactly, but like I said, and it would depend largely on who the next guy is. And there are definitely are candidates that I would be much less enthused about. But a lot of the last couple of years, I feel like it's becoming a little stale, and his in-game coaching style has become pretty predictable in not a good way. And I wouldn't mind a shakeup of that. But I do think that it's likely, even if you get one of your better candidates that you have in mind, it's likely that this would result in a dip to next year. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. It feels like with the reportage that I've seen, and it's always weird when you have like the Twin Cities media people reporting on a St. Cloud related story. It just all strikes me as 2017, 2018 all over again, where it's Larson, the great recruiter. And he's still like being sold as this 10-year-old narrative now about how great of a recruiter he is, where we've got 7 years of him as a head coach, and he had the upward trajectory was mostly with Motzko recruits. Since it's been all of his recruits, the results really aren't there. And yeah, you can say that he would do better in a place with more money and better facilities and a better alumni base and deeper pockets. But I would do better as a recruiter down there too. I mean, does that really mean that you're a great recruiter? If you had all the money in the world, you'd be a great recruiter? You'd feel like the recruiting chops would really stand out at a place like St. Cloud, where you don't have all those resources. And yeah, he's had some hits here with Gross, obviously being top of mind. But those are not as frequent as you'd think for a guy that is still billed as, God, this great recruiter. So it's a bit of a disconnect. And I'm wondering if it's the devil we know, and it's the Gopher people are just kind of, it's something at a distance that St. Cloud State. Yeah, they made that title game 5 years ago. Let's get him. It just, for me, it's been surprising, the development of how much steam that it's gained. And from my perspective, I would be happy either way. I didn't expect this storyline to pop up,
Yeah.
and we've got to react one way or the other. And we will do so if that time comes here in the next few days and we hear that news. But I guess there's nothing that we can do. We don't have the $1 million budget that we can just throw at them to either keep Larson or bring Raboyne here, or whoever our dream candidate is. Like, I guess we can just be fans and go with the flow.
And that's, one thing about Larson and his recruiting is that I'm really pumped for his recruiting class here coming up. So, and that's where that whole question mark, if he does leave, what's going to happen with the people that are here, or are committed to here, where all that's going to end up, or if they have room for him. Again, that Gopher class has some really good, players along with it as well. So, at any rate, I do feel also there is a big disconnect between the fans and the Twitter reaction versus the I guess the reporting of it and where Coyle's head is at right now. And I keep saying Coyle, the athletic director for the Minnesota, for the U of M, Mark Coyle. So, anything that I'm seeing is a lot of, really him as well. Like, it's not really something that, again, livens up the fan base. So we will see where everything kind of all shakes up over here in the next couple of days. And like we said, it may already be old news by then. So we'll see where all of that ends up.
If they do make a move, if they pick Larson and if he is hired, we will do an emergency show. I will diverge kind of the fuller list of names and potential candidates. And I've even got the one that you'll really laugh at, I think.
Oh, geez.
But it's pointless to bring it up before, even if that possibility is even in the,
that's a tease,
in the realm of possibility. So,
yeah. So, as we put a bow on it, right now, do you have a percentage? Where would you be at as a percentage meter of him leaving St. Cloud State?
I think he's the slight favorite right now. I put it at like 60-40. He's gone.
Okay.
What about you?
I've actually thought as this kind of continues and goes on longer, my percentage is starting to dwindle. So right now, slight favorite. I'd probably go at about 55% percent. But if you would have asked me on Sunday, I would have thought somewhere in the 80s.
Yeah, I would agree.
Or Saturday, Sunday, somewhere in there. I would have been a lot higher that he was gone. But as this kind of goes on, it's maybe kind of maybe think the net's a little bit wider. Maybe he is doing a little bit more due diligence, or maybe Coyle was got a lot of outraged alumni being like, no, look at his record and have really soured on Larson. So it's
this hasn't bound them in the past from doing this, but especially now, and we laughed about this a couple of weeks ago about the portal officially being opened after the Frozen Four, and wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You really can't talk to guys before that time, before they actually go into the portal to see if they want to come over to your school and whatnot. But if that is the official rule, I mean, that means that the portal doesn't open for another 3 weeks. But what really is the rush? And we saw this with when they plucked Motzko. They had to have that conversation coming into regional weekend, which is the situation that we're at now. Whereas if you think that they really wanted to field the best candidates possible, if you thought that Furschweiler could be bought out of Kalamazoo, if you thought, which I agree that Carl's a pipe dream, but just throw out whoever your ideal candidates, the ones that are still playing in the tournament. Obviously, they were able to talk to Motzko 8 years ago, so that didn't stop them then. But why don't they just wait at least until regional weekend? I'm not sure what the rush is, because obviously with recruits too, I mean, they can always bolt. There's no like transfer portal for someone that hasn't come into school yet. I haven't heard anything from like the Cullens or any of these other recruits that they've decommitted based on the Motzko news. I might have missed something, but I'm just wondering if it's a disconnect between saying that you're going to conduct a nationwide search, but then we're going to rush and make this coaching move within 5 days, and we're not going to bring Furschweiler into campus. We're not going to bring these other potential candidates to campus because they've got regionals to prepare for. It seems like, whereas I can see from the women's side, the portal opened today for the women's side. There is an urgency to make that move at that time. But from the men's side, I'm not sure why not just taking another week if that really kills you. But again, not my decision to make.
Let's go ahead and switch on over then. Where do you want to go? Do you want to go with the men's bracket?
Sure.
Let's pivot here. NCAA Tournament bracket was released. Andrew, listen to your show. I already had it written down in pen. And you were banking, I think, kind of on Cornell and that they would stay out east, and them moving them on west, kind of shuffled everything around. And really just kind of, in my opinion, it's so weird, I think, how this bracket was laid out and the decisions that were made. It's like, just for sure, they just really don't care about attendance. Like, in my opinion, like, I think not enough decisions were put onto that, and that's I think in the end that does the fans a disservice. But that was kind of my thoughts on how the bracket all shook out.
Yeah, I would say this current committee doesn't, with Tim Troville, who's the current head of the committee, the AD of Harvard, or he's some muckety muck for Harvard. His first year as the chair of the committee was last year, and they did very little shuffling there. I think literally the only thing they had change last year was to break up a 6-11 interconference matchup that was between UConn and UMass, if memory serves. This year is the same thing. All they had was the 6-11 matchup to deal with. This was between Dartmouth and Cornell that had moved that matchup around. But they just moved. They made instead of 6-11, they made the 6-12 and had the 5 seed play 11. And then they just divvied up everybody else based on their exact seed in NPI and split the bracket up that way. Whereas like that wasn't the case like in 2023 when we had the Fargo regional, which a lot of people were upset about, with the 3 Minnesota teams, the Gophers, Mankato, and St. Cloud. Minnesota being the 1 seed, St. Cloud, I think it was a 6-11 or 6-10 seeding, not the 8-9 as it would normally be drawn up. But so it seems like past committees have been more apt to do this. I don't really understand. Like McMahon was saying this would really break precedent if they didn't do this. Well, like, precedent based on what? Last year? Well, okay, then, but they typically have done. I mean, how many times do we bitch about Providence being placed in Providence? And they had a choice of not putting Providence in Providence because Brown was the host of those Providence regionals. So they've made those moves based on attendance in the past, just not this current makeup of the committee. And it's interesting. It seems like how our thought process or preferences when it comes to the tournament have evolved. Because I remember back when we first started the show in, 2016, 2017, I think we were more aligned. At least I was. I know I was more of the strict bracket integrity. Just keep it like they did this. I would have loved this bracket back in 2017. And I was scoffed at the attendance moves or the moves made in the name of trying to boost attendance. Whereas I'm kind of flipped on that now. And it's mostly because the math, and I mentioned this on the mini podcast that I did, the 3 seeds are so clumped together. Is it really like to hang everything based on, Penn State is 0.02 points ahead of Quinnipiac and NPI. I mean, that's one overtime result, just the slightest of margins, but yet that's Penn State at number 9, and that is the word of God, and Quinnipiac at 10, and that cannot be moved. It seems silly to be so in thrall to a mathematical equation, which people ran the numbers, and if they would have stuck with pairwise this year, UMass would have made the tournament over UConn. So again, it all depends on the formula that you spit into the computer. It'll spit out different seeds and different teams even of this field. Why be so obedient to this math that we don't even understand? I couldn't figure out what I couldn't reverse engineer how the math goes in NPI, even if I tried. If I took all day, I couldn't figure out how to compute Cornell's NPI number. But yet, this is how all these games are divvied up. All the matchups are divvied up. And as you said, I think the loser in these could be some great games. Quinnipiac and Providence might be the best game of the field. Who knows? But no one's going to be there in person to see it in Sioux Falls. People like to say that Sioux Falls is going to be fine attendance-wise because North Dakota's there. Who in Sioux Falls is going to take off work on 4:00 on a Thursday to watch Quinnipiac and Providence? Not many people. It might be a sellout based on tickets sold, even though I did see plenty of tickets remain for the Sanford Center for that regional. North Dakota, the all-session passes, several thousand seats still remain. So maybe North Dakota's fan base has changed some habits over the last couple of years. I guess we'll see.
I have decided that when I retire, if I retire, I'm a millennial, let's face it. If I retire, I am going to make a point to, I'm going to go straight like Marlins fan. Do you know who Marlins fan is?
The orange jersey right behind home plate.
Yep. I'm going to go straight Marlins. I will make a point every year to go to the dead regional. And I will sit in my own section, in my own, like right on the glass or something, in some obnoxious get up. Because
what would the get up be? This is a good.
I don't know yet.
This is a good bit.
I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I'm going to find. It's got to be something like the Orange Marlins fan. It's got to be something gaudy. It's got to be loud. I got to have a thing, but it's got to be something of like. Because we're still going to have this crappy system for the next 30
when you
years.
Retire. Yes.
When I retire,
years, we'll still have this.
We'll still have this for reasons unbeknownst to, I guess, only Woden, our Lord and Savior Woden will know. But it's, I like, just to make it a point, I will find, like, which is going to be the dead regional, and I will go to that one. And I will just be loud and obnoxious during that one. And everyone will be able to hear me because no one's there.
You might have a choice this year. I think Worcester is going to be odds on the deadest, but Albany too, Penn State probably will have a decent showing there. That's the thing too, like some of these regionals, like I mentioned the North Dakota and Sioux Falls, like the North Dakota games, if they make the regional final, those will be fine. But same like Denver and Loveland, but I'm not so confident that Western and Mankato at 12:30 local time in the Denver exurbs are going to have a great turnout there.
And then you've got Minnesota, Duluth, Penn State at 9 p.m. local time. Like,
the other thing too is not only do we have probably the majority, let's say, of these first round games are probably going to look pretty bad TV wise in terms of the attendance. But I was looking on ESPN Plus. The last 2 years, every single tournament game has been streamed on ESPN Plus, including the Frozen Four. This year we get 2 games in the regional on ESPN Plus. None of the Frozen Four. Those are all on terrestrial cable that you have to pay. You have to have a cable subscription of some sort to access. So either fire up your favorite Russian illegal stream for these games or pony up for YouTube TV, or don't watch these games. And that's another just kind of kick in the nuts. Like, again, I pay for ESPN Plus. I've talked about this the last couple of weeks about how like they've nosedived in quality over the last year. This is another. I'm not sure if I'm going to be renewing my deal with them because I'm getting less content. It's more expensive and it's buggier. Technical difficulties and all the stuff that I've mentioned recently. This is like the worst of it because it's like I only get two games to choose from in this first round. I'm not even sure if they have any of the regional finals. I would doubt not. I did see that like ESPN and ESPN Plus are getting the regional finals. So like regular ESPN, which I know that like coaches like Carl have been pushing for college hockey to get on the regular flagship ESPN and even getting off ESPN2. So I'm sure that was a point of emphasis for some coaches to get, this is in the name of exposure and growing the game. Okay, so you grow the game by you're putting it on ESPN, but you're not simulcasting that to ESPN Plus, and you're making these regionals that much more difficult for all the teams, fans to travel to in person. And so it's another one of these like missed opportunities that they continue not only just compound, but they seem to make them worse year after year. And so it's just another, I feel like I'm doing a disservice because I think there are some compelling matchups here, but I'm sure it is bracing myself for seeing all like the Worcester. I can picture right now because they have like the tan brown seats.
Yep.
I can just picture it right now. It's like it's going to be a sea of khaki in that arena, and that Michigan State Connecticut game might be a classic, but there's going to be about 600 people there to see it, and it's a shame.
Sea of Khaki. I think that'd be a sweet band name. So
maybe that's the title of the podcast.
Right, a Sea of Khaki. Let's go region by region. Where do you want to start? Albany? Who you got? Who you got coming out of Albany?
And again, I do think that Penn State Duluth game is going to be a good one. Yeah, I'm sure we'll see about 7 featurettes about Gavin McKenna during that game. They seem to be focusing a little bit on him for that regional or all of Penn State's games. But it's
I think there's a joke I can make about punching a gift horse in the mouth or something like that, but maybe
that's not what the indictment said.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just breeze past that.
Well, I said a couple weeks ago, now I got the prediction wrong because I said that Duluth would play an ECAC team in the first round. Obviously, Penn State's not in the ECAC. But then I also said that they would win that game, that first round game, Duluth would. And then the 4 seed in the other game in that regional would beat the 1 seed. So I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to go Duluth over Penn State, and I'm going to go Bentley over Michigan. And
Bentley
then Duluth,
over Michigan. Okay.
That paves the path for Duluth to go to Vegas. So I'm going Duluth out of this bracket.
Okay. Well, I've got Minnesota Duluth beating Penn State, mostly because Minnesota Duluth always wins in the first round. It feels like, so I'll just chalk that up. Bentley, Michigan, I think actually that's going to be kind of a closer game than people realize. But I am going to give that to Michigan. But I might be boring and also say Minnesota Duluth. We didn't really talk about the NCHC double overtime game against Denver. That was a really fun game to watch. Denver goes up early, and Minnesota Duluth ends up clawing back into it, forcing overtime, then going to double when Denver finally wins it. So congrats to the Pioneers. I guess you win all the time. As I was flipping through, because I was watching the ECAC championship and the Hockey East championship, and then I just watched Denver and Minnesota Duluth, and I'm like, God, these teams are on another level. Like, and I tried to take off my NCHC colored glasses, and I was like, this is going to be tough. I think for any other team. So with that, Minnesota Duluth against Michigan, I'm going to go with Minnesota Duluth as well. So I hate having the same teams, but I'm also going to have them coming out of Albany. So I'll have Minnesota Duluth in the Frozen Four.
And I'm just looking here at Duluth's NCAA tournament record. Do you know the last time? I can't even phrase the question correct. They have never lost in the first round in the NCAA tournament.
They have never lost in the first round?
That's going back to 03-04. The current format, 16 teams. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10.
Oh, yeah,
11-0 in the first round.
Yeah, since they expanded to 16, right?
Right, and then in the 80s, they made back-to-back Frozen Fours in 84 and 85. In 83, this is, again, they're playing they're playing most goals in 2 games.
Most goals scored, right? Yeah.
They lost one of those in 1983, which is the first time they ever made the tournament. So in this current format, they are literally undefeated. That's crazy. I didn't think it was that.
Mm-hmm.
That even goes back to the 90s when it was still a 12-team field. They beat Brown in 93 with Brett Larson on that team. So that's insane. So, yeah, they are definitely beating Penn State. And as we've said, probably making the Frozen Four again, which I should say, I will be in person in Vegas. Big announcement.
Big announcement.
My dad's going. I got him. I don't know if the slot machines, that was the selling point.
The Showgirls?
Showgirls, perhaps. We're staying at the Luxor.
The Shania residence, maybe?
Perhaps. Because we got that Friday. We got the Dead Friday. We don't know what we're going to do.
Dead Friday.
But we're staying at the Luxor. It's like a 10-minute walk from the arena. And so I will be there in person wearing my St. Cloud State stuff. So if you're going to be there, look for the red SCSU jersey, and that'll probably be me. I bet there'll be I'll see another SCSU jersey there, I'm sure.
Probably.
But I will be there, and I'm looking forward to it. But I'm not really looking forward to seeing Duluth there, but I think it'll happen.
Loveland. Western Michigan against Minnesota State. Denver against Cornell.
This is, I think, the region of death. I really could see all 4 teams making the Frozen Four out of this field.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mankato's a little sneaky there as a 4 seed, and this was the same first round matchup as last year. Is that a double overtime game with Mankato and Western in the first round? I think so.
I think so, yeah.
I'll stick with the home ice. It's, again, Loveland is an hour away from Denver, so it isn't their literal backyard, but close enough. I'll say Denver takes this one over Western in the regional final.
I'm going to go with Western getting some revenge on Denver. I think they've got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, so I've got them coming out of it.
You got them beating Denver in the regional final.
Yep. Yeah. But I do, again, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Mankato ends up winning that one.
Correct.
Like I feel not only that aspect of it, but Tristan Lemaire plays for Mankato. Last year, he was on Western Michigan, won a title. Year before that, he was on Denver, won a title. So, making 3 national titles, if he does it, if Minnesota State wins it 3 for 3 in 3 years on 3 different teams, cinema. just absolutely bizarre feat if he's able to do it. Yeah. And obviously I would hate it if Mankato does it.
Clearly.
But
cute enough story to make a regional final, but we don't need to see him make the Frozen Four. If it is at Western and Denver, how about this? The winner of that game, if it's Western and Denver, the winner has to take the Gopher job.
Here we go. Exactly. Or the loser has to. One of them has to.
I don't think. Yeah, the winner gets to give them the middle finger, the showiest way. Yes,
exactly.
Bungling this, but
oh man, I don't know if I could see Carl do it. Furschweiler, I definitely could see doing that. But I mean, they got
I think I could see Carl doing that more because Carl is. There's a 0.000 chance that Carl takes the Gopher job. There's like a 0.001 chance that Furschweiler does, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Especially if they got a new arena coming up too, right? $500 million.
But he's from Minnesota, so the Gophers.
But he's from. Exactly.
Like, that's part of their territory, so that's why they're
insert motion here. Worcester, the khaki regional. Michigan State, UConn, Dartmouth, Wisconsin. This is the regional, like you said, of that. I don't care about any of these teams. All of them, I feel like, are just going to lose.
Well, Dartmouth is my darling. I think of any team. If I want any team to win the entire tournament, it's Dartmouth, baby.
It's Dartmouth. There you go.
Now, I think they can beat Wisconsin. Michigan State kind of crapped out last year. Remember that? They lost in the first round to Cornell. Seen that we've had a lot of hype around Michigan State the last couple of years and haven't really delivered when it comes to the tournament.
Yep. I've got UConn coming out of there.
Really?
Yep.
I think they'll
Cinderella, baby.
Colin Ralph, by the way, he's been first pairing for Michigan State. I haven't been watching too much of the Spartans this year, but I got checked in on Ralph, see how he's doing. He's not putting up like huge points. I think he's got like 1 goal, 10 assists, something like that. But looking at their line charts, he's been top pairing pretty much all year for them. Steady presence. I suppose we could have used him this year on the St. Cloud.
Oh, that's true.
I'll say that. I got to go with my darling. I'm going Big Green and Dartmouth. Not Spartan Green. I'm going Dartmouth Big Green. I'll say over Michigan State. The all green finale there. Does green go with khaki?
I can't imagine it does, but maybe it's nature, right?
They should put Western there. I think Western was in Worcester maybe the last time they had it there because they're brown. They're kind of khaki brown, kind of goes with the seats,
right?
Yeah, I'll go Dartmouth.
Go Dartmouth. All right. All right. In Sioux Falls, North Dakota against Merrimack, Providence against Quinnipiac. What do you got out of here?
On paper, I think obviously it lines up well for North Dakota. Their loss against Duluth, and we talked even like the St. Cloud series late in the season where I think North Dakota is a little overrated as a 1 seed. I think they kind of more fit in like a 2 seed. So it's not like I'm completely sold on them. I want to take Providence, but I'll sell out. I'll go NCHC and I'll go Dakota.
Oh, all right. I'm going Quinnipiac on that one.
You are?
Yep.
See, I feel like Providence can win that game against Quinnipiac.
Oh, is that right? That's, I think, where we different because I think that's going to be Quinnipiac. And they've got
and their ECAC egg laying, which is the annual tradition. That's just a ruse because they save it all from the NCAAs, right?
Exactly. That is what they do. So, all right. Perfect. Do you want to hop on over to the women's? Or is there anything left you want to talk about for the bracket or the regionals?
I got my rant out. We're good.
Okay. Perfect. Women's got pretty exciting. I mean, Ohio State was kind of able to kind of cakewalk in their game to the Frozen or to the national championship game, but the Penn State, Wisconsin, that had some flair for the dramatic. That was an exciting game. This was my first real look at Tessa Janicki, and what a player and what a move that breakaway to really get to overtime for that game was just a wonderful play, a cool play. That building was just rocking. Just a wonderful atmosphere. But Wisconsin ends up pulling out that one. And then we had another incredible, exciting championship game between these two teams. And I tweeted it out as well with Ohio State and Wisconsin. I'm bored. I'm kind of sick of both those teams, but when they play, it's exciting hockey. And it definitely was a great matchup. Again, it's, the toughest thing I have, obviously, with women's hockey in general is I don't exactly know what a penalty is. I don't know what it calls for, what is the appropriate amount of body contact on checking, because I felt like this was an incredibly physical game, and sometimes I felt like a penalty should have been called and it wasn't, and I felt vice versa. So some of that I was just kind of all up in the air, but as far as the talent level on the ice, it was a very exciting game to watch.
Yeah, I agree on those points. I think the PWHL is kind of, and I do think that, maybe not next year, but I think eventually, I think body checking will be a go in NCAA. We're seeing it, as you mentioned, we're seeing it so much already. And
yeah,
what we're just creating now is this gray area where what do you call and what don't you call? And when do you call it?
And I think it's also a hindrance too for the, I don't know, I guess chauvinistic fan base of some men and be like, well, I like physicality. And it's like, you watch a women's game, there's plenty of physicality there already. And so it's like they use it as a crutch, as a reason not to watch it. Because I think, anybody with a slight interest of hockey, you watch, these games that were on, you realize, they get at it too, and it's still exciting hockey.
Yeah, so, and it's certainly contact sport, and and there's physicality, and that's, I thought after Ohio State kind of manhandled Northeastern, 4-0 after the first period. I thought they, and I've said this for the last couple of weeks, right? We saw when Wisconsin went into Columbus earlier this season and destroyed the Buckeyes in a way that Ohio State hasn't been beaten in many, many years. That was a sign. That was an early sign that Wisconsin still had the upper hand. But I thought the second half of the season, and especially down the stretch in the WCHA title game, it seemed like Ohio State was peaking at the right time, and I thought that they had the upper hand coming into this title game, with Wisconsin having getting that early lead, and then playing really, really well defensively. We should mention KK Harvey winning Patty Kaz, which I think we both expected and thought that was the right call, deserving. Not even just this year, but as a career. You think of her, she's got a 4-year career at Wisconsin with 3 national titles. Patty Kaz, I would assume she's going to be like the top pick in the PWHL draft. Bright future for her, and quite the career. Even stacking up against other Wisconsin greats, she's going to be in that conversation as the best. So, so that defense was giving Ohio State fits. But Ohio State looked like that third period comeback was, they definitely had all the momentum. They played their best hockey in the majority of that third period. It was interesting too how the goaltending battle was shaking. I didn't expect this to be like a goaltending battle. It's not like I thought this was going to be a 7-6 game, but Ava McNaughton and Haley McLeod both made huge saves at key times. They were kind of like momentum generating saves. And they were kind of trading those at some point in the third period. And as you said,
how shaky that McNaughton looked against Penn State.
And you can say the same with McLeod too. When you have teams of this elite caliber, it's not too frequent that they have to rely on goaltending. And they put up gaudy numbers, but a lot of that is based on the systems that they play that play in front of them. So it's sometimes it's an unknown, especially in these big one game, it's all or nothing kind of games, how goaltending is going to shake out. And I thought they both played fantastic in the title game. And I think it's fitting that it's Enright, more of a depth player for Wisconsin, that comes out with the game winner. Shows just kind of how both these teams are built. They've got the star power, but it still can be a third or fourth line player that can come and score the game-winning goal, with a couple of minutes to go in the game for Wisconsin. So as you mentioned, I agree that anytime that these two teams meet, particularly when hardware is on the line, saw this in the WCHA title game as well. Another good game. This obviously just that much more stakes involved, but we're always in for a good one. I think it's worthy of discussion because I saw some chatter about this. I think it's on X, and I think it's a good question. This is the fourth straight year of Wisconsin-Ohio State title game. As I mentioned, they've been, at least the last two have been classics. They've all been 1-goal games. The 1-0 game was in 24. I could have done without that, I suppose. But especially the last two have been really eventful.
Yeah.
But is this good or bad for the sport that it's this predictable at this point? Where, Wisconsin's losing Harvey and a bunch of other talent. Ohio State's going to be graduating a bunch. But I can guarantee you they're going to be locked and loaded again for next year without even knowing what the rosters look like. I can 80% pencil them into the title game next year. Is that a sign of health for the sport? Obviously, I would love to have these kind of battles. And we saw this a little bit with the Penn State-Wisconsin semi. If we could just get more of this, more teams like this, it's maybe something that time needs to run its course.
Yeah,
for the talent
I think that's
to get that to that parity level. But it's just, I don't know. What do you think in terms of the health of the sport? How this, because the sport is defined by these two, this rivalry right now, and what do you see kind of going forward?
Yeah, I think that as we invest more into girls athletics at the youth level, we widen the base, we widen the summit. And I think eventually that is going to run its course. And, women's hockey has always been defined by, dynasties. We can go back and say, okay, this was, Minnesota Duluth dynasty. This was the Gophers dynasty. This is, and now we're kind of to this part, but, we're getting some, a couple more that are going to be challenging for it. I think in the next couple of years that I think we're going to get there. But if we look back throughout history of the men's college hockey games, yeah, there was a period when it was just the same teams that were in there every year. And it took a long time before it got to where we are now with a lot more parity. So I think eventually we will get there. And it's just going to take some more time and more investment into the sport. And eventually we'll get there. At this point, I think with how much excitement was, with the Olympics, we can bolster that again, get the youth numbers up there. And, we just think USA Hockey tweeted out or sent out a message. I saw that crossed over 100,000 registered youth girls hockey players. So, it's eventually we're going to get to that point where it's going to be a lot more competitive. It's just going to take some time.
Yeah, and
hopefully St. Cloud State will be in there.
Yeah, and hopefully that'll be sooner than later. But I feel like it's still going to be. It's going to take a while, and it's almost like again, Enright, 12th best player, let's say on the Badgers. Like, why would that player be on the Huskies? Just spread that around a little bit, but it's not how it's not how it works.
Do you want a salary cap? Do you want a salary
a nil cap?
Right, exactly.
You're too good. You're too good for Wisconsin. We've got to put you on the Vigi. No, I would not be a fan of that either. But I just hope that naturally, that's how it's gonna solve itself. It's just naturally the talent will expand to the point where we have more of a, because even 1 and 2 here, Wisconsin, Iowa State, you can debate. They have been debating over the last several years, but who's better? Wisconsin's more often than not, but the gap between 2 and 3 is seemingly very wide. And I almost feel fortunate that we got such a good semi. Maybe that had something to do with the fact that Penn State was at home. I was in a weird position to root for Penn State. I don't know when I've done that, like for any sport, but I was doing that just because, again, we've had 5 winners of the national title on the women's side all time, 1 on the East and the rest in the WCHA. So I would just like a little bit more parity, but if we're not going to be able to get that, at least we can look forward to title games like the one that we saw. Congrats to the Badgers and FU for winning yet again. But you mentioned St. Cloud State. We are a St. Cloud State show, right? We've got some news on that front with the portal, the aforementioned portal. Now that the Frozen Four is officially in the books, that means the portal is now open for business. And we saw a fair amount of Huskies enter said portal. Sydney Wolf tweeted out earlier, but 6 entrants. There was actually 1 other entrant since then. And I guess we go over this. I mean, mostly freshmen and freshmen who did not get much playing time this year. We had 2 goaltenders hit the portal with Paige Hugendam and Haley Lawrence. I thought this was her last year of eligibility. Apparently she had 1 more left. She came in from post as like their 4th goaltender on roster. Never got any action in game situations for the Huskies. So she's in the portal. Hugendam as well, who did get a couple of starts when Kierko was injured earlier in the season. Wondering, because she would have been 2nd goalie on roster after Chobak's graduation. So now with Hugendam in the portal, if she finds work elsewhere, St. Cloud will have to bring in another goalie, maybe even 2, with Lawrence gone too. We've got Lily Erickson, who I know that you were kind of a fan of. You wanted to see more of her. And I wanted to see more of Lily. Yep. I was a bit surprised. She's got 7 games of action. She's one of these Roseau recruits, and I was a little surprised to see her name in there because we've got Jasmine Hovda coming in next year. Peyton Remick as well, already on the team. And I thought because they played with each other up till last year at Roseau, Hovda's still there this year. Remick and Erickson graduated last year. So I thought maybe she'd want to hang around and play with Hovda as well, but she's in the portal. We've got Reese Strouts. Aruba Skiston was the late entrant into the portal, defender, just a handful of games. Hannah Arnold, who didn't get in any games this year, was redshirted. I'm just going off memory. Oh, Sydney Jackal, which was kind of a surprise. I mean, she was a regular in the lineup. She was, 3rd liner on average, played every game. I kind of liked her. I mean, she's sandpaper type player, good physical presence. She's not going to be like a leading scorer on your team, but I think a good role player. So it's a little sad. That was the one that I was kind of sad to see, that and Erickson, because I think Erickson, there might be some potential that we're missing out on. But any of these names surprise you? The ones that I mentioned that I was surprised at, do you have any thoughts on the ones that are in the portal? Obviously, they could come back if there's no takers in the portal. This maybe isn't goodbye forever, but most likely they'll be finding some spots elsewhere. What's your thoughts on the first day of the portal and 7 names into that portal from St. Cloud State?
Yeah, I mean, 2 goalies. So we've got Kuriko, and then question mark. So, I thought this would be a chance for Hugendam to get some more starts next year. But unfortunately it looks like she's going to look to be going elsewhere. I do see we might have a potential coming in, Alexis Ehrman.
Yeah.
So maybe she's Canadian, plays up in Calgary. So I wonder if they were looking. She kind of saw the writing on the wall that she'd be another 3rd. So was looking somewhere else. The other one, Jackal was a little bit of a surprise. 2 goals, 8 assists for 10 points. Again, really kind of a grind them out type player. So that one, a little bit of a surprise. But I want to see a little bit more of Lily Erickson. So I wish her the best, and whatever will come from her in the future. And Aruba was really nice to me during Skate with Huskies, and pushed my son around in the chair. Didn't have to ask her for it. She just come up and offered and volunteered, and it's always nice when players would are very engaging like that and don't just stand in their own little cliques.
Yeah, I think Skiston and Strouts and maybe even Arnold, I think they were all from the Chicago area. And all of these players, I mean, I guess Lawrence not, because she was a transfer in, but and Jackal too. But Arnold, Strouts, Erickson, Skiston would have all been Adulski recruits. And we know that the coaching change happened somewhat late in the timeline last summer in June. The portal had been closed by that point. With the coaching change would have allowed it to open again, but none of these players or recruits at that time, with those four, hadn't yet started their college careers. They could have found
to transfer
other programs. So, I mean, it's not surprising because this might be kind of the shoe dropping from the Adulski move from last summer, just a little bit late. So it's not surprising. I mean, I'm thrilled, obviously, that we didn't look at this list and it's like a Sunderland or a Sorial on that list. Yeah. This is more of the inspection. Yeah, we didn't want to see that.
I'd pass out.
I think Jackal's a player that is of utility. She came from Lindenwood as a transfer this off season. So wish them well. But I do think that for the most part, these are kind of fringy type players impact wise. And yeah, we'll have to dig into kind of the incoming recruiting class. I mentioned Hovda from Roseau, I believe was a Ms. Hockey finalist. She might headline that class, but we'll have to get into that, see kind of what the numbers look like. If St. Cloud's going to be in the market for some transfers from other schools, they seem to be active, getting a couple of players every year that the portal's been a thing. So I wouldn't be shocked if we do see some action coming in from the portal. But if this is kind of what it's going to be coming out of the portal, I think, again, there was a couple players that we'd have preferred to seen a little bit more development at St. Cloud from, but these aren't terribly surprising moves.
A couple other ones that kind of piqued my interest early. Some WCHA, obviously. None from Wisconsin or Ohio State. With them actually just playing on Saturday. I guess that's really no
give
surprise.
That Claire Enright. We give her first line minutes. I'll tell you.
But none from Minnesota, which with their hiring of a new coach is I think maybe a little bit telling there as well. But Bemidji State is Sagetto, 7 goals, 11 assists for 18 points on Bemidji. That's a heck of a stat line. Julia Scalin from Mercyhurst, 9 goals, 22 assists. From Finland, so a little bit of an Olympian for Team Finland, so there might be a connection there that I am kind of looking at, and hopefully that we can capitalize on. And then the other one that I saw, where was it? Was Pellerin from Providence. 11 goals, 10 assists, 21 points there in 35 games. So those are kind of.
That's not another one of Scott Pellerin's kids, because he's got a daughter at, was it UConn? I think St. Cloud played, or Julia Pellerin. She transferred from BC to UConn this year, and that is Scott Pellerin's daughter. I can't find it in my very quick look here, but Pellerin, whenever I see Pellerin in like an East Coast connection, I think there might be a relation, but yeah, 22 points in Hockey East. We're not going to sneeze at that here at St. Cloud State. We'd take that.
Yep. So we'll see if we'll end up seeing where all those players end up going, and obviously for Skalin from Mercyhurst. Again, I'm looking at some of these Finnish players, and hopefully we can capitalize on that connection.
Defense too. I'm looking too just at the portal list from Sydney Wolf, Ella House from St. Thomas. We saw her several times this year, obviously in conference. 16 points from the point. It's not a bad defender to bring in. Ilsa Lindemann as well, 17 points up front as a sophomore, and so both in the portal for St. Thomas. Could use some players there. Duluth, their second goalie, Villanueva, who the Huskies saw. She played both of the games that Duluth played in St. Cloud this year when Duluth swept them. Gascon was out for, I thought, what was it, the Canada Challenge Cup or whatever they call it. I think she was out, not as an injury, but for other commitments, for international commitments that weekend, and thought that St. Cloud might have been getting a break. But that Villanueva played pretty well for Duluth. I mean, tough for her to crack that roster or that depth chart with Gascon there for just coming back for one more year, right? She's a senior this year. I would assume that's why we're seeing her name in the portal. Because if she is coming back, which I think she is, that's a tough depth chart to crack. But yeah, we'll see the names kind of fill out here in the next, I don't know, probably this week. I mean, now that we have such a condensed timeline, we got like a month, right, until the portal closes, 3 weeks maybe. Feels like they're trying to condense the time that the portal's open. So this should go pretty quick, but let's see what the Huskies do from a gaining players now that we know who they've lost.
That kind of wraps up, some of the main topics. We also, we were thinking about the Herbies and the Herbie nominations. We were going to release those. Here we are sitting at 2 hours. I've got the list. I've got the form. I think I'm still going to let the form go live and the video go up for the goals of the year. I've got all the goals the 5 goals that are nominated for goals of the year. I've got them on a YouTube video on our page. I think I'll let all of that go live, and then we can kind of run out our nominees here next week and just kind of voice them at least on the show. And then we'll have our award ceremony on the 6th. So get or on the 5th, 6th, 7th, whenever we record that week, whenever it'll go live. So make sure you get your tux on, and all the fanfare when it comes to it. So, so it's exciting time for the Herbies, and we're still taking requests for the Lowell Sun Sports Foot and Mouth Award. As we are, I think we're getting some takes in when it comes to it. And you know what? I'm a little late to it, but you know what? I think I can do this really quickly.
So we're talking about whiskey today.
Whiskey.
I don't think it's ever too late for whiskey.
Not too late for whiskey. It's been sitting staring at me this whole time too. And I was
there's someone out there. One of our 22 listeners has been waiting all episodes just for this.
Oh, I'd be flattered if that was actually the case. So we're going to Scotland again. Made up country of Scotland. So we are. Oh, I think I smell the peat. There we go.
Peat.
Very, very light heavy color on this one. Very peat forward, which is. Oh, no, that is kind of an ashtray after.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of the Lafroig style. or the Islay, I guess, style. Because
Mhm.
it's too much. It's too reminiscent of the lawnmower mulch bag.
Sure.
It's too much. It's like I'm taking a huff of that, and it's a little overbearing. It seems like that's kind of what you got there.
I
in
think
that class.
I think it's one of those things that like I got to be in the mood for it. And maybe it's just not striking my fancy right now, but like if I was having a cigar, I think it would pair pretty well with it.
A cigar around a campfire,
right?
Like while you're smoking barbecue. It's just everything's got to be smoke. Like there's smoke from every
smoke.
Just you're surrounded in smoke.
Right.
I think that's
the
ideal.
6-1 on it. So
it's high. It's higher than I thought it'd be based on your quick review of it.
I did another sip of it and I was like, because I was kind of lingering a little bit like a high 5. But then
again, you said that this was reminiscent of Ashtray. That gets you into the 5s and 6s, though. We've got ones in the 2s and 3s, but Ashtray
that tells you how bad that Finland one was, doesn't it? So,
I suppose.
Exactly. So, all right. Now it's an official show that we had the whiskey review. So,
could not forget that.
Perfect. All right. Well, you may hear from us in a couple of days, depending on if we have a head coach or not. Otherwise, we'll be here next week to break down some of the regionals and some of the action there. So, I am More Clappers, MOAR, More Clappers. Andrew, you can reach him at
Andrew SCSU HHP, Cloud Coverage Hockey at substack.com. We had that email address. Also, just want to shout out Zach, who also sent in a question, which we also coaching related, and hopefully we covered Zach's email as well. But thanks to both Zach and Brandon who sent in emails. Jason sent in an email recently. We've been getting some good emails. Jacobson emailed, I'm not going to the Frozen Four with you, Jacobson. I already said on the email or on the show tonight that I'm going with my dad. I'll probably see you there, though. He said he's going. He invited me. He invited me to go to join his group. And I'm like, I wasn't sure. I really wasn't sure my dad was going to go. But seeing
it's a good group to go with.
Well, would it be if Duluth was there? I'm not sure if I'd want to be in that group.
I mean, if it's the group I'm thinking of, it's a mishmash of a bunch of fans.
Is it not just Duluth fans?
Yeah, there's a couple Duluth fans, obviously, but I think it's a mishmash of other ones.
I'm not sure if I want to be around Duluth fans at a Frozen Four. Well, maybe I'd be like the Cooler. Did you ever see that that movie with William H. Macy?
There we go. Exactly.
I'd be like the Bad Luck Charm. Maybe I should do that.
And then every time that you've been able to do that, you've been able to curb any hot streak that Duluth was on.
Then I would just have to go to every Frozen Four to
exactly.
ensure that
just
Duluth never wins one again. Yes. You're onto something.
So apparently if I go to a Frozen Four, an ECAC team wins. So that's
come on with, because that means Dartmouth. That bodes well for Dartmouth.
Exactly. So thank you everybody for listening, and until next time, go Huskies. Woo!